Well, today, boys and girls, we have a very special episode of Doc Loyal Talks Comics. This is the 100th episode. We've been doing this for 100 weeks straight, guys, almost 2 years. I'm excited. I'm happy to be here. I love the idea and the chance to get to talk to you guys each and every day about the books that I love and the things that are important to me. The stories, the characters, all of these things coming together. And so we can talk about it, and I can find out what you guys love, you can find out what I love, and we can talk about these storylines that help create new memories each and every week. So I just wanted to say thank you again for sitting here, watching these videos, giving me the like and the thumbs up, and subscribing to the channel. We are 2 people away from 250 subscribers. So if you've got a friend that you haven't yet told about the channel, go ahead and tell them about the channel, because we need to go ahead and keep moving forward towards that 300, 500, 10,000 people goal. Just one person at a time, guys. One person at a time. All right, let's go ahead and dig into this. But thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to say, I haven't done a giveaway in a long time, but when I get to episode 104, I'm currently looking through what I have, and we're going to do a giveaway. So a month from now, you guys can be looking for a giveaway. All right, let's get started here. Pick of the week this week is Transformers number 27 by Robert Kirkman and Dan Mora, because you get this awesome artwork by Dan Mora, which unfortunately we're only going to get for 3 more issues from what I understand. But you get to see growth. You get to see growth because Thundercracker had always been a Decepticon through and through and through. But he saw what happened to Skywarp, and he saw that the Autobots didn't try to hurt his friend. Instead, they helped him. Even though he was an enemy, they still reached out and they helped him. And so he brings a new dynamic to the Autobots, because he's been thinking about switching sides. He says, you know, there comes a time where we've been at war for so long, and these people could have easily taken my friend out. But instead of treating him as an enemy, they treated him as a fellow robot. They treated him with respect. And that finally got through to Thundercracker about what had happened. So it's awesome to see growth and change. And through all of that, we also get to see that Ultra Magnus feels as though he's let the Autobots down. And he's trying to talk to Elita 1, or RC rather, about taking up the mantle of being the next Magnus. So you've kind of slowed down from the frenetic pace that Daniel Warren Johnson was doing on this book, but at the same time, you've got true character growth for the first time in a long time. It's kind of like Daniel Warren Johnson was the fun and the nostalgia involved in this property. But now Robert Kirkman is intent on bringing that property forward and moving it and making these characters actually make judgment calls and things that will, in the end, impact everybody in the book. Okay. Minor Arcana, issue number 12 by Jeff Lemire. And in here you get Teresa, who is looking for, let's see, is it Missy's brother? Let's see here. and they've gone to go look in Jason's room, her brother's room. And they were looking for specific things because Teresa has got, powers that she can read tarot cards, and it kind of transports her to a different place, and it transports her to where she can go and find almost like hidden information regarding people, characters, places, times, things like that. So she always accused her mom of being a phony because her mom has been a tarot card reader for years. And she's like, I don't believe in this stuff. I don't believe in seeing things that aren't there. And now she's going to try to help her friend out. And she ends up finding Jason. And Jason doesn't know who she is. But she's like, I'm here to help you. I'm here to, your sister, Kelly is with me, and she's really worried about you. And so he throws a tantrum, and he says, leave me alone and get away from me. And then a character comes through and says, you shouldn't be here, it's not safe here, this place is lost, and the boy is lost. And she said, what is all this? And the guy says, I promised him I'd keep him safe, and this place isn't safe. And she says, who did you promise that you would keep safe? And he says, your granddad, Bud. And so this is a book that deals with family trauma, family drama, and the growth of the main character, where she comes back to her small town to try to help her mother, who is terminally ill with cancer. And in the helping her, then she comes and finds a way to better herself and understand her family, which is a wild, wacky, crazy, married with children family, rather than a regular, terrestrial family, I guess we should say. So this book is a real character study in character and how to progress a story that the character itself feels is stagnant, if that makes sense. She felt like there was nothing there for her in that town, but now that she's come back, she's got all of these fantastical and odd and weird things happening to her to cause her to grow as a person. Sometimes in ways that she wants to, and sometimes in ways that she doesn't want to. But overall, it's a great story about family and, like I said, trauma and drama and just moving forward from the place where you're at. Okay, next up is Morgan Hampton and Will Conrad and Company with Green Lantern Corps number 11. Here you get a couple of different stories intersecting. You've got the Far Space System and Fatality, and this other character who is pretty much made of water, and so he's sucking the water and the nutrients out of other people. And then you get Kelly, who was John Stewart's sister, and she's kind of a construct, and she runs afoul of Effigy, and she tries to fight him. The story comes out that there is a fight in that sector, so the Green Lanterns on Oa are in training, and John Stewart split himself into two a while back, and with one sacrificing himself to reignite all of the different Spectrum lanterns. And this John Stewart does not want to really act, but he finds out that Kelly's in trouble, and he says, I've got to go to her. But he doesn't really know what's up with this Effigy character. And the ring tells him he's got pyrokinesis and create flame-based constructs. He says, I remember him now. He got caught up in his powers, and I hope he can be reasoned with. And it says, records show that the Spectre melted his body down and entrapped him inside of a lantern. And in the end, it's just a bombastic fight with Effigy. They are teaming up together to try to keep Mogo okay, the planet, and try to keep him calm. And at the same time, they're trying to take down Effigy without harming him permanently. And unfortunately, he just doesn't seem to want to go quietly. And then you get this. And John just loses his mind. Or not Kelly, Ellie, I'm sorry. And so he says, you just messed up. You messed up by hurting Ellie. You've got love in here, you've got intrigue. And in the end, John Stewart says, she was just a kid. She just wanted to help. She wanted to elevate things. She wanted to bring everything up instead of destroying things like you're trying to destroy things, Effigy. And I will say, in the end, John finds something that brings him peace, but you also get to see fatality in this other character, and now he's assimilated into this mechanic's body, and he's trying to reanimate his planet. He's trying to bring it back online. So it's interesting. It's not as interesting to me as the main Green Lantern series, so I don't know that I'm going to continue this more than maybe one or two more issues. I think the dynamic between Morgan Hampton and Jeremy Adams created a really strong story, and now that Morgan Hampton is writing it solo, I don't know that she has that same passion and understanding for these characters that Jeremy Adams brought to the title. But overall, still a really fun romp through the Green Lantern Corps and the Green Lantern universe in large. So, good book. All right. Next up is Circus Maximus, #2. So we have Mark Sable, Giorgio Pontarelli, Emilio Lecce, and Dave Sharp. And it's the continuation of these characters in the Cavern of the Lupercal. And they're trying to take from the treasury of Rome at the same time that Nero has begun to burn the city in 64 AD. And this artwork at times is very cartoony, but at other times it kind of reminds me of Dennis Cowan or John Paul Leon. Very, it's got its own detail without being overly, using too much cross-hatching and things like that. It's not a Jim Lee or a Todd McFarlane, but as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate John Paul Leon just as much as some of those other people. I've also come to appreciate Tommy Lee Edwards, who's very similar in art style. So the art in this book is really amazing, and it really brings the story to the forefront. And they're underneath the Circus Maximus trying to steal this treasure, and one of the people is a senator. Sorry guys, my words are not coming clearly today. A senator, and the senator also has architects, and he's an architect. And so he's trying to take plans for Nero's Golden Palace. And he says without these plans, he'll have no choice but to come to me to build him a new palace, and I'll be redeemed in his eyes. And on a second story, the character who's supposed to bring their chariot and their horse to help them get the heck out of Rome once they steal the treasure ends up fighting in gladiatorial combat, and he's trapped there. and he pretty much, he's free, but then he pretty much goes for a double or nothing. And in the end, he manages to win his freedom because the gladiator that he's fighting says, "Listen to the roar, the crowd wishes you to live, but the crowd doesn't pay me, the senator does." And then he sneaks up behind him as a fire bursts out in the Circus Maximus, and he says, "No, the crowd wishes to live, as do I." And he comes up behind the guy and cuts his throat. So you get to see this really wide angle double page spread of Rome beginning to burn, and trying to see what else, so they have to fight through the Roman legion to get through, to run away, and in the end they get caught outside of Rome. It's in the neighborhood an hour later, but at the same time they're confronted by Roman legions. So you have this heist, which is like Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13, going on while Rome is burning. Nero's not aware of what's going on. They've captured all this different treasure that was within the treasury. I think it's a great book. I really enjoy it. I think the story that Mark Sable is bringing to the table is one that is both historically accurate, as much as it can be, and at the same time, the artwork, like I said, it levels this whole thing up to where it has, again, that historical accuracy, but it's got that intrigue, and each character has deep-seated motivations for why they're doing what they're doing. So I can't wait for issue 3. This is turning out to be one of Mad Cave's best books and one of my favorites. All right, guys, here we have the facsimile edition of Fantastic Four, issue number 12. I think this is the last issue they're going to do. So when I get done with this, I'll have the true issue number 13. So I'll have the first year plus of Fantastic Four in facsimile format. But we'll talk about this one more in an upcoming Greatest Hits video. All right, next to last, we have The Amazing Spider-Man number 17 by Joe Kelly and Pepe Larraz. And we're finally, it looks like, coming to the end of this spacefaring story. You get to see there was almost like a She-Hulk type lady that Peter liked, and she liked him, but she comes and she says, I don't love you, so don't worry, nobody's gonna get hurt. This is, and you're a little guy, so, if anything like that were to happen, then you would be, I'd hurt you. And Rocket Raccoon and Doctor and all of these characters that were on Rocket's ship, the ship came down and crashed down on this planet, and Rocket says that somebody sabotaged the Calathian circuit booster, which completely messed up the power drive system. So he's like, which one of you sabotaged it? And it ended up being Nile, the little guy here. He sabotaged it because he kind of wanted them to be a family. He wanted everybody to behave themselves and act right. And so he messed up the ship and put them in a Gilligan's Island situation where they all have to sit there, and it's kind of like when you go to your family dinner or Thanksgiving or Christmas or something, and you've got a whole table full of teenagers or preteens that are sitting over there just staring at their phone and not looking up, not talking, not conversing to one another, even though they're at the same table. Sometimes you have to enact a no cell phone policy and things like that at dinner so that people stay focused on the person that's in front of them. It's like going on a date and all that person does is just stare down at their phone. And here, Nile wanted to create that sense of urgency so that they would talk to each other, so that they could try to be kind to one another. And meanwhile, Peter is trying to destroy these creatures because Ray, his green-skinned friend, understands the hierarchy in space that Peter doesn't understand. And so she kneels, and she stays kneeling, and she has not yet raised her head, because this character that is going after Peter, he ends up burning out his little symbiotic friend that's helping him, that gives him extra strength and durability. And in the end, Rey raises her head, and the controller, she says, "Defiance, you wretched thing," and she says, "I am neither." And Peter says, "Rey," and "You've done enough. This burden is now mine." And she says, "I am Raylyth of Kalo, and if you would like to see strength, look upon me and weep." And so in the end, she saves Peter, and they come back, and Peter says, "I think it's time for me to go home." So maybe we're nearing the end of this story. I don't hate it, but I just didn't care for it. Guardians are not my favorite characters. The getting shot off into space and having a merry band of mates, that story never has interested me. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this better, but hopefully in the next 2 or 3 issues, we'll move Peter back to Earth, and then we can get the story leading up to Amazing Spider-Man number 1000. How cool is that going to be, guys? All right, and last but definitely not least, we have the penultimate issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, issue number 23, with writing by Jonathan Hickman, art by Marco Checchetto and Dave Messina. And you start off by Peter and Mary Jane yelling at Otto Octavius about Richard going into the Kingpin's lair to deliver a device. And Peter says, "I'll go get him. I'll bring him home." And in the end, Wilson Fisk and Mr. Negative are at odds with each other. So they're about to fight, and instead Spider-Man comes in and kind of provides them a common foe. And Peter eventually gains the upper hand on Mr. Negative until Wilson Fisk distracts him just long enough to give Negative a breather. And once he gives Negative a breather, then he says, "Don't fight this." And so he's kind of like the Purple Man. Negative can control others' emotions, and he says, "Don't fight." And so Wilson Fisk proceeds to start beating Peter into a pulp. And Peter calls Harry and says, I need your help. And unfortunately, this is the time where Harry's father's voice comes back in his head. He says, "Will you stand by 1/5 of a wife, or run off to save a better man than you will ever be? Where does your loyalty lie? Do you have any agency at all, or are you just a thing to be pulled to and fro?" And so Harry decides, and he says, "I'm sorry, Peter." And they think that they've finished him off, and finally Peter throws his hand up and stops Fisk's, hand from coming down and continuing to punch him. And then Negative comes back, and no fighting back, remember. And meanwhile, Ben and J. Jonah Jameson have started pushing out a expose onto the Times Square Videotron and all over the TV networks and everything, talking about who Wilson Fisk truly is, and trying to bring about his downfall. And Negative says, "I'll take care of the son, you finish up here." And Peter jumps up and says, "This isn't over, I'm just now getting started." So we finally got an all-out action issue of Ultimate Spider-Man. The next issue is either 24 or 25. I thought it was 24, but maybe 25 is the final issue. But either way, this is all going to come to a head in the next issue. And this story, the first year was perfect, pinpoint perfect. And it's kind of lost its way as it's gotten into the second year, where it's gotten, to use the words that The Walking Dead said, it's a larger world. But the problem is it's a larger world that you don't have 7 years to explore. If Hickman had been on the title for 6 or 7 years, if he'd given himself a timeline of 5 years before the maker came back instead of 2 years, then this book could have gone down as just straight across the board. But it was, to begin with, it was straight across the board. And then once we got into year 2, it became kind of erratic and it would go up and go down. So not a bad book. I love it. It's still one of the best Spider-Man books on the racks, and I hate to see it go. But I just kind of wish that Jonathan Hickman had given himself a little bit more time to build this story out so that it came to a more fulfilling and natural conclusion than something that is probably going to feel quite rushed. But that's it, guys. That is it for episode 100 of what I picked up this week and what I'm reading. So what are you guys reading? What did you pick up? Are you on the absolute Batman 15 train? Because I just can't get behind it. Whether it's great or whether it's terrible, I just left that book behind and I just can't get behind it. So if you guys are, tweaking about the Joker, sweet. I'm happy for you. What other books are out there that I didn't pick up, that I didn't read, that you just think are absolute bangers? Just let me know in the comments. Let's like and subscribe to the video. Go out there and tell 1 or 2 friends, and we'll get to that 250, guys. Let's keep moving forward. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon.